Hello and welcome to Mila's non-combat interviews, where I interview different people who participate in different non-combat aspects of Amtgard. Today I'm here with the wonderful Master Rose Glutton. Hi Glutton, how are you tonight?
I'm doing all right, fams. I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to get to talk to you.
Thank you. I am really excited to get to interview you. I tell you what, like I have a lot of people who, you're a really well-known name in Amtgard with your service and all the things you do. So I am really excited to get to learn about you and your experience. So I want to start off with some introductory questions, if that's all right, just so
Yeah,
our
that's fine.
audience.
Yeah, shoot away.
So, how did you start in Amtgard?
Well, it's actually a funny story. A couple of my friends I went to high school with, actually, I've known them since middle school. They started involved around Amtgard. They talked to me a little bit about it in high school. I didn't really like pick up on it. And then a couple of years later, I was watching a couple of movies. I'm like, wait a minute. I know a couple of people who did that. So I got a hold of my friend Saladin, shot, texted him over Facebook, and he's like, oh, yeah, we still have a local chapter in Anderson. So I visited that Sunday, and ever since I've been hooked. Ran into a couple friends I haven't seen over years, and here I am now.
And how would you say your role has evolved in Amtgard over time?
There's like so many different aspects I could touch on that, but just starting where when I first started at Amtgard, because my very first rose was that I got was actually Servant Feast at Bridge Wars, and this was back at Castlebrook. It was my very first event. I was probably only in Amtgard in for like maybe a month, maybe a month and a half. And I just remember how many people were there, and you know how Bridge Wars is. Numbers are always a high amount of numbers. And I seen how the feast team was, and I was just like, you know what? A little extra help can't hurt nobody. So I was just out there serving food, and ever since then, started going from there to here I am now. So
That's awesome. And I would love to just jump right into service and crowding questions
yeah, please.
because I know you've done a lot.
I try to do a little bit of everything.
Okay, so what is the most challenging or fun part of coordinating different things for an event?
So it just depends on what type of event that you want to go for the population, because there's different forms, teams that you have to go for, different aspects, war, feast, the whole funding just from the aspect down. I recommend people who are first start getting into service, try at your local park, start out like at do small feast free park, do stuff like that and opportunities, then build yourself up to where you get comfortable enough where you want to start doing kingdom events or Grand Duchy events. Battle Cry is one event place that I always recommend to people because Midgard's a good event. Eben Trials, good thing about Rise and Winds, the opportunity to crack anywhere and learn and is really there. It's just getting yourself to that level to where you're confident in your skills and being able to know what you can do and also relying on teamwork. That's the one thing I stress more about anything. Doesn't matter what position you're in, from auto all the way down, from gate, feast, war, etc., is your team. Teamwork is the dream work.
Absolutely. And speaking of teams, would you like to go more into, or can you give me a general overview of the different crowding experience you have?
Yeah, so with my very first, so with I'll start with my very first one, the cleaning crap. Um, Tree God was the person who gave me the opportunity. He's like, hey, he had someone who backed out at the last moment, and he asked me, and I was like, hey, I don't mind doing that. And Saladin actually just gave me a little piece of advice. He's like, here, get a crap load of trash bags and just go around and give them to people. If you can stay on top of that, most people will clean up for themselves, which everybody did. I was pretty happy for that. It's had some experiences there where it was kind of a because it was at Hannon's, and you remember Hannon's, right? It was a good place, but for me, for my first time cleaning experience, and I never crowded before. This was my very first time. I never did the Shire, the Duchy, Grand Duchy, etc. I just jumped straight in the kingdom.
Oh, wow.
So that when I say I really hit the floor running, I basically did. But with clean, that's pretty much it. I don't want to say like a good level to start at, but if you were going to do that, as long as you just stay on top of everything and you trust your team and you do that, it's pretty well maintained.
Mhm.
So another one that I have done before was event services. Um, I've done that a couple times. I've co-cratted, cratted. One of the things about event services is just making sure people are having fun, going around checking your bands, making sure people that are not trying to do anything they're not supposed to. Everybody's just, just basically, I don't want to say like the vibe of the event or the energy, but just making sure everybody's just having fun and that, and also being safe. Everybody's also got to be safe, and so I never really did much of a. I never really much was a war crowd. I was on the war team, but Vaughn was the war crowd when I was part of that team a couple of years back when we were still at Hannon's. So I can't really go much in depth with that, but I can say that from what I've seen of people and from who I've seen when they get their Master Smiths and from the conversation I've had, it's a really good opportunity if you really have like a creative side to where if you got like a vision for battle games or a theme, or you just want to keep it simple and easy, where you just want to have some battle games where everybody just comes and has fun and, you know, to the T. And, that's what really matters at the end of the day is where everybody's overall experience. I never really did feast because I'm not really much of a good cook. Now I did help out a couple of years back with when at Hannon's when the feast had to step down for emergency reasons. So me and a couple of people stepped in there. I took over for the premiere dinner and all that, not the premiere dinner, but the main feast for that Saturday night and all that stuff got cooked and not going to go full detail on that story, but let's just say it was a learning experience for me and it taught me that I need to trust more in others than just myself. I've always grew up where I need to get things done by myself and be more efficient and instead of, I don't want to say like relying on others, but I didn't really see the vision of teamwork to where I am now. And if it wasn't for the bonds and the people I've met over the years, I would have never have gotten my master rose. Because I did do my bit, I did do a good job and all that, but I was just as strong as my support. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, so with now with autocrating, this is where you get more into the numbers, choosing your team, who you want for your bid, and more etc. on that, because that's where you have to figure out with insurance, liability, and such. So I can go more in depth if you like for me on that with the auto crowding side.
Yeah, sure, if you'd like. Absolutely.
So when you get to autocrat, you're like running the whole show from the decisions from where budget, personnel to where everything goes on. And basically I don't want to say if it's going to, it's, if people are going to say if that's a good event or a bad event, that's mainly, it's going to be on the team, but the autocrat's the one who are going to be like, hey, I'm the one who made this team and I'm going to take the hit because I failed somewhere to get the best out of my people or help them out as best as I can. So that's when I always say you got to trust your teamwork and you got to be able to rely on your not only yourself but your people as well. So
Mm. Certainly. And so those were the main crap positions that you focused on in terms of crowding events?
yes, yes, I wanted to make sure that each level that I went to before that I had more experience, and I don't want to say like kind of build my resume, but I want to make sure I didn't want to just jump straight into it without know what I'm, you know what I mean? Got to
Mm.
have that know-how and the fundamentals. Like I was telling you a little bit ago, when I was the one of the autocrats for Keep a couple of years back, when we first originally put in that bid, there was no bids for Keep at all. So we went to the Keep BOD, and this is my first time ever, having to answer questions like, for like budget and etc. And I'm like, okay, I have some numbers, I had my fundamentals down, but I didn't have the answers to every question when it came to like liability, insurance, and and all that. So when they said, hey, we're going to give you the chance to be a junior autocrat because we still want you on the team. I said, sure. I was like, I wanted the experience more than anything because going into that, if I can at least get a maybe out of them instead of a yes or a no, then I did my job at that point as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when providing services for events, do you prefer to be in a background role or in a role that interacts more with event participants?
Um, Me personally, it can be a little bit of both. It just depends on the situation and what's going on during the event at the time. If I'm in the background and I'm seeing everybody having fun and I'm seeing everything just hitting to the T, hey, that makes my job a little bit easier. But if I'm also involved too, like, hey, I'm seeing people have fun, I'm interacting, I'm getting their opinions, like, hey, how are you perceiving this event? Are you having fun, or what concerns do you have, or comments? Because everything is going to have pros and cons. That's just how life is. My goal is where everyone is just happy and they say, hey, I'm glad I came to the event. I ran into people that I miss and that I love, and I get to see them. Because at the end of the day, we only get to see each other so many times out of the year. Yeah, we got our local parks, but when we do our events, that's 3, 4 times a year, you
Hmm.
know and we have bonds that stretch all across the country and the world because of Amtgard and how big the game is. And that's why I'm thankful for this community and how long it's been around for. And as long as it continues to be around, I feel like that it doesn't matter who you are, as long as you're a good person, heart and nature, then you will always have a spot. I didn't mean, like say like a spot, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
get what you're saying. So, you mentioned specific advice for cleanocrats earlier, like, for example, having a bunch of trash bags on hand and, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that people have personal accountability for picking up their own trash. Is there advice that you give to people doing service under other crats or for people wanting to crat other roles, as you mentioned previously?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't care what kind of question it is. People say stupid questions or anything. A question is a question. Okay. I would rather you ask questions than not ask anything at all because, say, if you go into a crap position or you're learning underneath, or say somebody shadowing me, and I didn't share with them the knowledge that was taught onto me, then not only did I fail them, but I failed myself too. Because as myself going with in those crowding positions, I should be teaching the next person that's going to be doing that. Because there's always going to be opportunities for people out there to crack. And it's just getting yourself to that experience and that level where you know just how to execute. Because at the end of the day, long as you do everything within the best of your ability and within your power, then I believe positive results happen. Everything happens in life where there's boo boo and just stuff you can't control. But it's the stuff that you can control at the best of your ability. I don't want to say like dumpster fires because that happens with anything, but it's
Yeah.
just so.
Yeah, absolutely. And so building on this as well, is there anything that you'd like to see more of at events, service related or
Um, with the rising winds, we are a very service heavy industry, and everybody's always going to have their different perspectives of how they want to see improve in service. Everybody's always going to have that. My thing is, I just don't want to see people get burned out because and not just the service industry, it can be with any path that you walk on. Sometimes this even happened with me where I was just like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I had to have a self-reflecting point. It's like, hey, if I'm doing this, then it's like maybe I need to take a step back, take a breather, talk to some people, and that's the one thing I emphasize to everyone the most. Don't get burnt out because Amtgard, yes, it is just a game, but it's a place where you come to relax, come to get away from whatever situation, or not just to get away, but just to come to the community, in general. It's just don't get yourself burned out. Like I said, I stress that more than anything.
yeah. And so considering the fact that this interview series is kind of more focused on non-combat parts of Amtgard and stuff, this might be a bit of a weird question. Um, but what are ways that crowds could be more mindful of non-combatant participants?
So there's different ways to where how you can approach that. One of the ideas that I brought up when I was part of the Keep team is how can we get more people involved, like not just with battle games, maybe like ANS, role playing. What other ideas can we brainstorm out there to get the whole overall feel? Because when you come to events, there's going to be battle games. Battle games are going to be there, but how can we get everyone involved to where they're like saying, "Hey, I've gotten as much as I can out of this." So one of the things that's a good question you brought that up. But you remember a couple of years back where we had guild wars over there at Billy Creek, and we had the guilds, and you were part of the what was it was the former merchants team, but it was a different name.
Yeah, I was part of the Artisans Guild.
I remember that because that's where I joined up with you and everything.
Hmm.
I tell people if you are non-com, there's always a different way to be involved in battle games because I think you were a candy druid that day, right? You were just handing out enchantments.
Yep.
If if all you do is just sit there and hand out enchantments right there, you're involved in the battle game. You're not in no aspect where you have to be around swords or anything like that. If you want to, hey, more power to you. It's just however you want to involve yourself into the game. There's different ways to do it. Especially with non-com, with games like Guild Wars, it involves quest, side activities that contributes to most of the overall theme of the vision of the event. So, and like I was telling you, when you were playing Candy Druid, I talked to a lot of people, where they don't want to get involved in battle games, which is understandable because, that happens. But if you somehow are ready and you're like, hey, I'm doing this, one of the best ways to do it, I don't want to say like a spell casting class, but a class that I tied to where you don't have to be too much involved in the fighting, but you could be more like, hey, I got your back. Here you go. You want some enchantments? You want to be able to go do a thing? I got you, homie. Or sit there, be a healer where you could just res people, heal them, or whatever you need to do. It's just my thing is whatever, if you're involved in combat or non-com, are you getting the best participation out of yourself that you feel like you are? Are you having the most fun with it? A lot of people are very competitive, which I understand that, that's just human nature. But me, how I see it through my eyes, I want everybody to have fun and smile at the end of the day.
Absolutely, 100%. That's definitely the most important part is just making sure people have fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of the core parts of service.
Yep. And the smiles too. And the smiles. That's one thing that's worth it for me a little personal is just seeing everybody smile and just, feeling the energy. So
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that you go, as event services, you walk around and make sure that people are, that the vibes are okay. What are different ways that you try to ensure that people are having fun? Like for event services, is there anything out of, kind of what's normal or required that you kind of look for as well in that
not
realm?
really, not really. It just depends on the person. Me, I'm a very open, and I like to just say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Give out hugs and everything. That's just how my approach. Like I said, everybody has their different ways of doing it. And the most important thing is you're just looking for those wristbands and making sure people are being responsible and everything is, being as smooth as easy can be. Like I said, life sometimes throws curveballs and you never know. It's just being able to handle that situation, especially event services. A lot of people lately have been combining event services with the clean team, which I'm okay with that, because it's operations. They fall basically underneath the same category. But if you think about it, there's a difference between event services and clean team on that right there. So I look at clean team as I don't want to say like the entry point for getting into service, but if you're at the kingdom level and if you're trying to like do different ways, that's how I started.
Yeah, certainly. And aside from being quote unquote an entry point, I feel like clean team is also one of the most important roles because,
Yes.
if we don't leave the site, as good or better than we found it, people won't want us to come back. So,
Exactly. And that's one of the most important things too, and especially having a relationship with the site owners and all that. So,
yeah. So, it's really awesome to learn about your different experiences, just as you've been creating and doing different services. I actually have some questions for you regarding your masterhood.
okay.
And just some different aspects about Master Rose, kind of. So I'm really excited to get into this.
Okay.
So, what does receiving a Master Rose mean to you personally?
It's still I'm still accepting that. It's something that it was in my goal. I just didn't think I would be here right now at this point. I knew it was in my vision to always get it. it's here and it's like wow, you know, especially in anybody when they do different other paths, warlord, battle master, dragon master, etc. But with me, one thing that I can really reflect on is all the people that I've gotten to meet over the years. That's what that's what it ends up boiling down to. My master rose is a achievement of the work that I have given and will continue to give, but it also means that the bonds I have met and will continue to meet going forward and for future Amtgarders. Because I am a very approachable person. And one thing that every Amtgard knows this too is that our new people is what keeps the game going. If we don't keep having new people join Amtgard, then it's I don't want to say like it's going to disappear or anything like that, but you get what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah, it'll stall a little bit.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because we need new people in to teach about doing service and other aspects of the game.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And then, how do you define excellence in non-combat contributions like service?
It could pretty much be in any aspect you want to think about on the team, especially like gate, clean, feast. Each team is going to have its own way how you want to measure excellence. How I measure is did everybody were they cohesive enough? Were they able to meet their expectation or did they go beyond it or did they, were there different improvements that they can make or something like that? At the end of the day, it just depends on the person, how you want to measure excellence yourself. Me, I'm going to stress this like how I've always been stressing. If everybody has fun and everybody's smiling when they leave the event, if they can say they came to the event and they had a better weekend and it made their week or whatever better, then that means to me, and not only myself, but as my team, that I feel like that we did our job. Pretty much like I said, my thing of excellence, I don't try to overstress myself out. Each person has their own. I just always go with the expectation that stuff will happen, but I always expect good stuff to happen. It's one of those yin and yang type of situations, 50-50. You never know.
And what cultural differences would you say there are for non-combat paths, such as paths related to service, compared to combat ones? I know you mentioned you do a bit of fighting, so
hmm
I'd love your
So
input.
there's different ways. If you want to get involved in the fighting tournaments and all that, you don't necessarily have to be a fighter. You can be a tournament organizer. You can be a bean counter. You can be a reeve. One of the things about service, you can dip into a little bit of everything into the fighting, into the fighting side. The fighters are there to fight, and that's what they need to focus on. While the other people, like the tournament organizer, make sure that whoever is winning is getting their points, or whoever needs to go in their spots, making sure the bean counters are getting the names correctly, or the right tallies, or whatever format and style that they choose to go with. Also, making sure that there's like water, hydration for people because when there's weapon masters in the middle of summer when it's 85, 90 degrees out there and there's we'll say 20, 30, 40 plus people because I've seen tournaments where we've had 50 and above. And if there's no hydration, especially for people, even not just with tournaments, with fighting battle games or doing service, if you don't have hydration out there or a little bit of food, just to, some basic sustainability, it's going to make the day difficult and that just makes the whole experience sour and everything and I'm all about like I said just making sure people are having fun and doing all that but if people are not drinking the water or taking proper care of themselves and that just creates just a bunch of chaotic energy, you know what I mean? And that's why I was telling you earlier when if you are thinking about service, think about like if you're at the Shire or the Barony level, how can I start in it? Bean counting's a good way to get into it. Maybe being a referee in a battle game or something, reaving. You know, there's different ways to how you can approach it if you want to. It's just how you want to approach it and where do you want to start at is how you look at it.
And as you've grown as someone who does a lot of service, what responsibilities do you think come with, being recognized as a Master Rose? Or would you say that there are?
There, myself right now, I've been thinking about a lot of different ways. Each person's going to have their own way that they think of how they earn their masterhood. Mine, what how I've been approaching it is the people who believed in me and who have told me that I have earned it and that have continued like, hey, when you know you've earned it and then it finally happens, it's like I don't want to say it's like I don't want to say a wake up call or anything, but it's like, man, this is happening, and you know that you've earned it. You know, it's not just like, hey, you were just doing, this and that, this and that. You know, you went through the channels and you were recognized, but not just the populace, but the whole community itself. That's what makes me think in my brain, like, hey, if my community and the people who I love and care about recognize me as a master rose, then I need to be like, yeah, that this is happening, and then I gotta accept it. No, like for like just like, hey, I've earned it, and if everybody has recognized it, and then more power, you know what I mean?
So, kind of building on all of this stuff, actually. So, what skills would you say that you've built the most on your path to masterhood?
So I can't really put like a general word to what I can say for skills. The only thing I can say is like jack of all trades, master of none, pretty much. Because I don't want to say I'm just like one dimensional. I try to be a little bit of everything, because you never know what might happen. And that's how I've been able to go from clean team to event services to helping out with war to autocrating. Like I said, everybody has their different styles and how they approach it and whatever they want to do. I just my thing that I tell everybody the most is don't get burned out because people you can do it for years and it's still continuing to this day where they feel like, hey, what am I doing? What am I doing? And it's like we see everybody is doing a thing. It's just don't burn yourself out because people can have it's human nature to be our own worst enemies at the end of the day. And when you set yourself up for like, I'm not saying don't set yourself up for goals, but make them achievable and have I don't want to say like a timetable, but a period where you're not going to put it down to where it's like, man, if I don't do it like this quickly, then what am I doing? It will eventually happen. Everything it's not just about timing, it's just about the progress and trusting the process.
That's actually got me thinking. So, with trusting the process and, like watching your own progress and stuff, how would you say that you kind of, sorry, I'm trying to build off of what you said about not getting burnt out, trusting the process and watching your progress. How do you balance service and relaxation at events? Or, like, do you have like a specific ratio or balance you follow for how often you crit?
So I am one of those people to where I need to practice what I preach because I did the exact opposite. I would always never rest, and there's numerous people that's going to tell you this, like, hey, they basically had to. My night told me it's like, hey, you're not doing no service, you're being cut off because once I'm in game mode and I'm there, I don't stop. I'm clocked in. I might get the one thing I do make sure is to make sure to get enough rest.
Mhm.
But other than that, I am not doing anything else. There'll be times actually I, like I said, I do the exact opposite. That's why I always tell people don't get burned out. Don't be like 22, 24-hour shifts and stuff like that because that stuff is not fun. And that's why I
So,
always say trust your team, trust in yourself, and always have that self confidence that you have your people there to have your back. The old thing of work smarter, not harder. Yeah. I've gotten a lot better at that, a lot better. One of the reasons why I got my master rose, because like I said, teamwork's a dream work.
yeah. So, you mentioned working smarter, not harder. So, alongside this, what principles do you feel kind of guide the way you do service? And has that changed over time, or?
So my main principle has always been just try to keep an open mind and open ears. Especially with meeting different people, especially each role of service that you take on are not just in that, just maybe in battle games or fighting tournaments or monarch being in leadership. It just at the end of the day, it's all about fundamentals. Each person has their different way of how they look at fundamentals because with me coaching basketball, I tell the kids, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be somebody stronger. There's always going to be somebody faster. There's always going to be somebody out there, but you can be the most smart, you can be the smartest person on the court. And what I mean by that is being able to, I don't want to say just anticipate, but being able to, when stuff goes wrong, being able to maintain your composure and make and sure seeing it through it, and everybody's just at the best they can be because each crack does come with stress. I'm not going to sit here and say positions don't come with stress because that's with any aspect in life. It's how you manage it and how you're able to walk through it. Even though it might take you longer to walk through it, least you're walking through. It doesn't matter how fast you go, as long as you're doing it and you keep trying.
Yeah, so I really like how you mentioned the fundamentals. So I know that you said that people tend to have different perspectives of what fundamentals are important. Are there
Mm-hmm.
any like fundamental skills that you think people should try gaining experience with early in their like path to masterhood? Are there any
Okay.
skills for service that you would say are the most important?
So with me as myself, I can't say like how other people are going to perceive it, but as myself as a person, how I went through it is always being patient. Patience is one of the key virtues in anything, and if you're not patient, then mistakes happen. Mistakes are going to happen. But it's how you are able to go to the mistakes and find a solution. Even though sometimes the solution you're looking for might not be the best one, it could be better. You don't know how it's going to work out. It's the fact that you're attempting and that you're trying to come up with something. You're trying to figure out whether or not like, hey, how do I we'll say for war crafting, for example, say something happens in the battle game and you have to come back, you have to go on the spot. How can I get the balance back to being equal? You have to might move some pieces or something. Or with feast, say if you're out of ingredients and you have to make a Walmart run or a store run or something, it's all about execution with the fundamentals. That's one thing I forgot to mention with that too. You got to have the fundamentals, but you got to be able to execute and have that team with you to be able to execute it as well.
Yeah. So actually, this is really interesting because I was just about to ask you, so like as someone who crafts and does service, what behind the scenes things do you wish more players, like understood or thought about more?
It just depends on the person itself, to be honest, because with all of us being our own unique individuals and how we approach things and how we think about things, it just boils down to the individual at the end of the day. With me, I was more behind the scenes. I'm not saying I didn't really want to be noticed or anything like that. My thing was, I'm going to go do a thing. I'm going to have some fun and just see what happens. I've always been, I don't want to say like a basic person, but kind of a keep it simple and kind of sassy kind of person. So, um, so let's see. To be more honest about just my path in general, there has been difficulties. There's been ups and downs, but it's how I always say is like how you keep pushing through it. And like I said, it's at your own pace. Okay. Amtgard has been around for a very long time. And long as we keep our community going and they keep bringing the new players in, you will have the opportunity to always get that wherever you're trying to shoot for yourself at the end. You know, whether regardless if it's service, warlord, or any other of the masterhoods or paths that you're walking down.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed listening to you just talk about all these different things because you talk about so many different things that I think not a lot of people really consider with service. Yeah, so I'm actually going to ask you, let's see here. I'm going to ask you some general, like, community and culture questions because you mentioned the people in this game a lot. So I'm really interested to see what you
Please
say.
do. Please do.
Yeah. So what cultural aspects keep you coming back to Amtgard?
Like I said, just the people in general, the bonds and friendships that I've made over the years, and the ones who have keep supporting me and still support me to this day. I don't want to say I'm like kind of like a social butterfly, but I'm always when I'm at the events, I'm always walk around, and it seems like when I go from one camp to another camp, everybody's like, "Glutton, hey, how you doing?" And I'm the type of person I give out free hugs. Okay. I believe that just it could be anybody can just be having a bad day, and somebody just it's just simple, but I always ask her like, hey, would you like a hug? I just don't walk up, I respect people's boundaries and stuff. I'm like, hey, would you like a hug? And they're like, and then they think, it's like, and like I said, being respectful to people's boundaries and stuff, some people might have be having a bad day, and a simple hug or just hi, how you doing can make somebody's day feel better. And that not just in Amtgard, but just in aspects in general life. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen a lot anymore, but it's a rarity where people just don't have that genuineness. The one thing I love about our Amtgard community is that everyone that I've met with and continue to meet is not only their own unique individual person, but everyone's very genuine. Like I said, human nature, we're all going to have disagreements and two agreements, but at the end of the day, as a community, we're all there as not just a whole, but as a family as well.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about Amtgard is how supportive it is. And do you have any specific Amtgard related traditions that you like to do? Like, is there something before, cratting that you like to do, or maybe something you do at every big kingdom event?
Well, get food, get a chance, just get some food, and whatever I don't want to say like local spot, maybe like a local diner or, just somewhere where you just take like, all right, even especially at the end, even if it's like before the event or after event, it's just one of those pause and reflect moments like, all right, this is my little timeout real quick. I'm getting some food, and then you're back on clock. So but I love food in general. That's why my name's Glutton for a reason.
I that was going to be my next question actually, is Glutton like a pen name for you, or is Glutton their own character?
So it's a little bit of both. My favorite anime is Full Metal Alchemist, and Gluttony is my favorite character. I'm just not as cool as him, so I just cut it down short for Glutton. And like I said, I love food too. Anytime I go eat with people, I love food.
Valid. I can vibe with that. If I ever bring my propane grill to a Kingdom event, I will come find you out if you want grilled cheese.
Oh, please do. I'm a definitely a glutton for some grilled cheese, especially
Classic.
some good tomato. If you got some good tomato soup to go along with it, oh man,
Classic.
yep.
And do you have any funny or memorable out of field moments?
I have so many. I have so many of those. Oh man, I don't know where to choose from. That right there. That's a pretty broad question right there.
I was going to narrow it down to like when you were cratting or something.
Okay, so we'll say probably my. Let me think back. All right, we'll go with War, for example. It was at a March event for we were still at Hannon's at the time. This is when Vaughn was Warcrat. Actually, the Warcrat uh at the time wasn't able to make it, so Vaughn was able to step up. And as I was seeing how they were able to go to the battle games and how they were designing the battle games, and how everybody was just having fun with it, not just their attention to detail, but how they were able to see if a game was unbalanced or something, how they were able to fix it, just being able to do that on the spot. And that's what got me thinking a little bit, not just that moment, but got me thinking in my head, like, okay, in order to be able to see things, I have to be able to make sure that all the things that were going, not just for that war game, but different aspects are maintaining. As long as it's maintaining, that's the key, one of the key things too.
By the way, so just with general community culture and stuff, are you from Griffin's Perch or which park are you from?
Serpent's Hollow.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Nice.
we're a small little shire.
Which city are you all in again?
Are you familiar with Anderson, Indiana? Have you heard of Hoosier Park Casino?
Yep.
That's Yep.
I'd say I know I have family who lives over in Anderson, so that's cool.
Okay,
I
cool, cool.
never knew there was a park over there. Or well, maybe like not in that specific. Like I knew that there was a park in the general region,
Yeah, yeah.
but
We were in Yorktown. We've been going to Griffin's Perch. Well, I work on Sunday, so I haven't had a chance to go out to like a local park days in a little bit. But a couple of my park mates, they've been going to Griffin's Perch, just for the battle games and the community out there and stuff. So once I get my work schedule situated, hopefully I'll be able to start going out to local park days again. That's the one thing that I miss the most is just the local days, being out there with your homies and all that.
and like so how do you usually spend a local day at park?
So it just depends, just the vibe of the day. Sometimes I just go there, I sit there, hang out, talk with some friends, or another time I'm into the battle games. I'm like, all right, let's have some games, even if it's just simple three versus three or simple little capture the flag or whatever is just designed for that day. But mostly in general, is just being around my family and my friends. That's what really pushes me for the park days.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you fight. Would you like to go a bit more into your fighting experience and what you like to do?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some questions actually about fighters, like someone who participates in non-combat aspects of the game and who are fighters, because
Okay.
I'm trying to get everyone's different perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you like to go into like your fighting experience? Do you is there a specific class that you prefer playing or?
So my favorite class is Scout. I like to be I don't want to say like a typical scout, but pretty much like a front to midline support scout, a little bit of jack of all trades, master of none type of just where I can just cause a little bit of chaos. I consider myself like just like your average fighter. I'm not really out there like, getting like, hey, the game winning kills or the game winning, but I'm out there more of a like kind of like a soldier more than anything. Does that make sense? When I'm on the battlefield. It also depends what class I play too, though. But Scout's my favorite.
And would you say there's a relationship between fighting skills and other skills like service within the community, if any?
Muscle memory. And not just muscle memory, just being able to just depends on the aspect of what you're doing in the fighting community. Like I said, for if you're like a tournament organizer, you could think like as a tournament organizer, kind of like I don't want to say like at the autocrat thing where like events comparison, but when it
Mhm.
comes down to like the aspect of making sure everything is good because you're in charge of that whole thing, that's like one of the best comparisons that I can think of, especially if you're doing like a kingdom tournament or a grand duchy tournament where you're expecting 30, 40, 50 people just for a 1 day event compared to where as you're an autocrat, you're especially Rise and Winds where we get anywhere between 300 people per event. Even our March events are bigger than most events for other kingdoms, just
Mhm.
because of our population.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So definitely muscle memory is the thing. That's actually something I haven't really thought about, but it makes a lot of sense though. That's really cool. So my final question to you before we start kind of wrapping this up,
Okay.
because I want to be mindful of your time here. Have you found that fighters and service-oriented players understand each other well, and how do you bridge that gap?
So there's different ways that you can look at it. What it boils down to is how the person and what they're doing. If somebody is just trying to be like just a service and they're not really, wanting to fight or doing any of the fighting compared to someone who's just there for the fighting, it's just like I said, the mindset of that person. Um, because each aspect has its one. You with the whole service side, we'll touch back up on that. The bean counters. Say you're out there and you're on a 5-6 kill streak, but somehow that bean counter there's a miscommunication. They didn't hear your name or the number or whatever how the format and style that is, And that goes to the fighter where that person, they're trying to go out there, say, especially if they're on the path of warlord and try to become a sword knight, you know, when they're trying to do that, the important thing is how they finish in tournaments, whether if they win, get second or third place, or however they see themselves moving down that path. And that sometimes can create where I don't want to say like a disbalance, but humans make mistakes. And how I'm able to sum it up is communication on both sides. If you're not able to communicate, then that can create mishaps, not just with that, but in any aspect in life. As long as you're able to communicate and communication is strong, most things are able to work itself through.
I think that's a really awesome note to land on before closing as well. Communication is so underrated, but also stupid important. Like,
Exactly.
how has being a service-oriented player shaped your Amtgard journey?
Oh man, it's still continuing to shape my journey right now to this day. I don't want to say like I'm like continuing to evolve, but each event is always going to be different. As long as I see my people and I get to see how everyone's doing and I get to enjoy my time with them and vice versa, as long as they're, having a good time, then that's what boils down to me at the end of the day.
How has Amtgard impacted your life outside of the game?
It's helped me become more sociable. I've always had okay communication skills, but I was always antisocial. I didn't really talk to a lot of people, and when I got involved, I got to meet just people from different cultures, and it's helped me realize like, hey, you know what? I really limited myself by not try to talk to people, and I know I'm making it sound a lot easier said than done because it just depends on the person. But if you're able to just say hi, how you doing, or just some way how you can approach it, you never know what the door can open for you and what new possibilities can be out there.
And I'm going to follow this up with a question that may be loaded depending on how you look at it.
Okay,
Um, what do you hope your legacy in Amtgard will be?
just be known as a good person at the end of the day.
I mean,
I could there's other ways and other words I could probably use and say, but just for me, overall, my personal is just to be known as a good person and known like, hey, if you need somebody to talk to or somebody to reach out to or something, I'm that.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you've well already hit that, by the way, because like even before I met you, everyone was always talking about how much you do for the game and stuff, so you're pretty cool. As a final question, where do you see Amtgard growing in the future?
Well, there's different ways that Amtgard can grow. My thing is, I'm gonna just go back to the basics. It's the people that keeps it growing. As long as we keep the newer players coming in and we continue doing that, it will keep going down the path that I see it going. Especially with us being the Rising Winds, with us being how big of a kingdom we are and all that, that's the one thing I'm glad to be a part of. Each kingdom has its own, don't get me wrong, has its own growth and potential. Everybody does. But as the whole Amtgard international community itself in the world, long as we keep that keeps growing itself and the people and its message get out, then that's I'm cool with that.
Glutton, it was an absolute pleasure to have you today and to be able to talk to you about your experience with service and cratting in the game. And not only that, but getting your opinion on, fighting and service, how we can bridge those gaps as well. So I thank you so, so much for coming on today, and I really appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to chance to talk to you. And next time I see you at an event, free hug if you like one.
Absolutely, and likewise.
All right. I'll see you around, friend.
See you around.
All right, you take care.
You too. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to hear more about non-combat participants in Amtgard, consider clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. This lets me know you like my content and would like to listen to more in the future. If you would like someone specific to be interviewed, or you'd like to have me interview you, please reach out to my Discord server at Mellafalaman or message me on Facebook using my real name, Megan McLean. Thank you!